Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Need, and today we have a very, very special guest. I usually say very special guest, but today's a very, very special guest. My great friend, Dan Stephenson. You might know him better as Ideal Strength. He is honestly one of the most genuine humans that I have had the pleasure of connecting with in this industry. And it's very seldom you meet someone who is so dedicated to their craft and so humble about it. So, Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Paul.
It's my pleasure, man. So, listen, we were actually riffing before we started. We've known each other for years, but I actually have no idea what your backstory is. Like, I have no idea how you. I know that you were, in the management of a very large facility recently, and then you guys went in on your own. And I'm sure that you're going to tease out a few of the details for the future, but I don't know how you got there. So fill me in, man.
Yeah, let's see. So I've been a coach for about 20 years now. Started right out of college, actually out of high school, and then went to college for exercise science degree and just kind of pursued training people pretty much right off the bat. So with that experience, got out of there, out of college, worked in a small personal training studio, and then eventually found myself in this very large corporate company that we had over 100 trainers, where I kind of spent some time there, about 12 years, working my way up to become one of the lead educator mentors. So led a lot of the education for the staff, hosted some different educational things with different organizations as well. So traveled the country doing education for coaches. And from there, left and did my own thing, Ideal Strength. So founded that. And both my wife and I, Tasha, we do online coaching, we do in-person coaching, continue to do the education for coaches as well, doing courses. We're working on a course together with Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So as we go through that, we're developing everything, really just thinking about how to bridge a gap from theory to application.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest things when we see working with a whole lot of new trainers is they have this knowledge that they come in
Yep.
from more so the textbooks, right? So they come in, they might know some things or feel like they know some things, but then they have no idea how to apply it to their clients in front of them. So one of the big things I noticed, and guilty of myself as I was a new trainer starting out, is you almost feel a little bit robotic, like you're reading a script.
Mm.
So that was a big thing for me, to kind of like a revelation of my own, is like actually start to pay attention to the person in front of you, what they're saying, and have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I really like the mentorship part of things, to where you can take the knowledge, the application, all the certifications, all that stuff, but then really work through how to apply it. So that's where I've kind of found myself now. And actually this day we just signed on a new gym. So we're just
Dude,
getting into a brick and mortar space
that's
today.
so awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea on the open date?
We're going to aim for March 1st.
Oh,
So
wow.
looking at that, yeah.
Okay. So you're going to be a
So
hermit for the next month.
basically, yeah. So the good news is it's already kind of built out. So we just got to get all our systems in place, get everything lined up, and we'll have more of our official opening, hopefully around that March 1st.
Are you guys going to move a lot of the stuff that you have in the garage into the new space?
We won't have to too much. Some of it for sure, like some of
Yeah.
the specialty bars, some of the other equipment there. But like I said, yeah, like we kind of lucked out in what we found. So basically, this place was already built out as a gym, and we ended up buying the equipment that was inside of there too. So it's going to
Awesome.
be pretty smooth, pretty easy transition. We'll bring in some different, elements that we like to play with, because
Yeah.
being strongman powerlifters and kind of conjugate heads when it comes to training, like, yeah, we like the specialty barbells, some of the strongman toys, and having
For
fun
sure.
with some of that stuff. So we'll definitely bring in some of that equipment.
Dude, I'm so excited for you guys for this next chapter and the way that you can influence others and impact the industry. Because, something that I've always admired about you and Tasha is that, as you've progressed in your careers, the core of education has always been there. Like, obviously, when we start out in the industry, we want to learn as much as we can. We want to, as you mentioned, like I want to get as much knowledge in my brain as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
But then what I find for a lot of people and I've been guilty of this in different seasons of life as well, is as you further in your career and you kind of develop your own philosophy, that drive to learn more kind of goes out the window because you're so busy doing stuff. But you guys have never left that behind. Like you're always attending conferences, you're always attending seminars and workshops. Why do you continue to have that drive, or what is that drive within you?
I'd say it's kind of almost looking at it from a different lens these days too.
Okay.
So love learning. I mean, I think being a
Mhm.
student basically for life, just really enjoying that process of, hey, if I even take a similar course or something that I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on, if I take it again or maybe reread a book, is there
Mhm.
something else that I could take from it?
Yeah.
Because the initial first time through, you might pick up, a couple nuggets. But then when you revisit it and you've actually got some experience applying some of that knowledge or some of that stuff that you're learning, you start to have a different lens and maybe the deeper understanding of it. So one of
Mm.
my favorite things is really looking at, okay, what is out there, meaning like courses, books, anything that people are teaching, and then what can I take and apply to my system to make it better, and then maybe leave the rest. Like there's not
Yeah.
necessarily one where I've really just kind of like, hey, this is it. I learned this new thing, the Saturday, Sunday course. I'm going to drop everything that I learned and run with this. So really kind of coming at it from that lens of like, okay, is there something that maybe I'm slipping on? Like I mean, I know you have a similar experience and background in terms of duration in this industry,
Mhm.
but when we look at, you know, have we forgotten more than what we've learned, of like being
Yeah.
reminded of stuff or like certain exercises or certain methods or certain things where it's like, oh, that might be something to revisit or bring back in and put a little bit more focus on. So I
Mhm.
feel like there's always something to learn and to get better on. And then even more now as an educator, like almost the flip side of like, how are they delivering this information?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so you really get a grasp on like, okay, what is being taught, and then how is it being taught to the people that are attending the conferences and attending the courses,
Yeah.
and
I,
then that, yeah,
sorry,
I'd
go
say
ahead.
that helps kind of frame like, how can I communicate that to who I'm working with?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we all fall victim at the beginning of learning one system and then that being our thing. And we see it often, especially with the really popular certifications, like when we were coming up, the Poliquin certifications. So if you were a
Mm,
Poliquin guy, that's all you did. Or if you were a DeFranco guy or a Cressy guy, like that was your thing. And I did that. And it was like, okay, every conference I went to, or every internship I did, or every workshop I did, I kind of like threw everything out the window and that was my new thing.
mhm,
This day, like these days, it's like, okay, someone takes prescript and they are a prescript coach. That's the way that they coach. And where I think they miss the mark is that there is no one system. And you hit the nail on
mhm,
the head. All of these systems have elements that are valuable to us within the context that we're in. So no person is going to be the same as the next one who walks through the door. So if instead of adopting all of these systems part and parcel 100%, take all of it in, store it, and then be able to pull from it as needed. And as you said, we can learn something from everyone. And
mhm,
I'm finding myself seeking out education not so much because I want to learn new things, because ultimately I don't think there's much that's new out there, but I want to learn new ways to communicate. I want to learn, hey, what makes Stan Efferding such a great educator in the field of nutrition? When he's presenting on nutrition, what aspect of his teaching can I steal? Or if I go to a talk from a really notable trainer, it's like, how do they implement their assessment strategy? Like,
mhm,
what is their framework that they pull from? And maybe I don't adapt their framework, but there's something that I can take. There's some nugget of wisdom that I can take for myself to apply to my clients, or some nugget of wisdom that I can take for myself and say, maybe I could teach this better. And
mhm.
I think that's the key as we grow is like, how can we fill our gaps? Do you find as you've progressed in your career, you're so much more conscious of your weak points.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, fresh out of college too, right? I feel like we've seen a lot of coaches that feel like they're at that peak of the
Mhm.
Dunning-Kruger effect,
Oh yeah.
where you feel like you know way more than you probably actually do.
Yeah.
So you know a lot maybe in theory, but the application is just off.
Mm.
And the more that you kind of spend more time working with clients, working with people in person, online, working with other coaches too, you start to realize like, okay, I could probably do a little bit better here, or I feel like I'm pretty darn good in X, Y, and Z. So I think that does help a ton. The more that you really are in this and in the trenches, coaching real people, you really start to realize where you're weak, where you can improve upon. And then the more like depth or breadth of knowledge that you have in terms of like learning from different sources, you realize that, yeah, like you said, there's not a whole lot new, but there are a lot of similar elements in how people are teaching different things.
Mhm.
But ultimately, they're just kind of using a different lens to view it. Because, I mean, essentially, we're looking at like human movement, human biology, human physiology. So there's not a ton under the sun. But when you start to kind of scale it back and look at the different lens that they're viewing it from, it may
Yeah.
help you frame and reshape how you view movement or how you view exercise selection. So I think that helps a lot to kind of expose yourself to a lot of different schools of thought and then look inside of what you're doing and where you can improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think the more lenses that you can have, the better, because not every lens is going to apply to the person in front of you. Um, One thing that I want to tease out, because I think this is a missing piece, especially now that online coaching has been so ubiquitous within the fitness industry, people are jumping in to online right away. They're kind of skipping the stepping stone of in-person training. So for someone like you who does in-person training, hybrid and online, talk to me a little bit about how the in-person sets you up for success in the online space and how you integrate both in-person and online within your practice.
Love it. Yeah. So the online, I think, is tough. Like it sounds like you got all these, gurus telling you that you can make so much money online and just kind of scale. You got to find your archetype of a client and just double down on that. And then you just scale, 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 sell the same program to everybody.
So I have to interrupt you because I just had this conversation with somebody, and have you seen this person online who's like a lesbian strength coach? It's like
Yeah.
the best way to build muscle as a lesbian is blank. I,
Yes.
I'm like,
That is
where are we
niching
going to go
down.
next? Like, I coach women over 40 who wear pink socks on Sunday and go play golf on Monday to live a better life. It's like, what are we doing here? Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, I had
No,
to throw it
no.
out
I
there.
mean, you do see that though, right? The
Oh,
layers of
for sure.
niching down. Yeah. So it's like it's very specific. You almost feel that to your soul. Like if that is you, if you're that 1% of that population, you're like, that is me.
That is me.
Like I wear two different color socks. That they're talking to me. There's so many people that, hey, that might actually work, in terms of like a
Oh
marketing
man.
sense. But I think when it comes down to actually online coaching, like you're still coaching humans and they still experience things, wildly different than each other. So
Mm,
there should be some level of individualization within online coaching,
for
which,
sure.
yeah, like, if you do that properly, in my opinion, like it's not something that's widely scalable because you spend time actually going through, giving feedback, looking and basically coaching, right? It's not
Hmm.
just programming. I think that's an element too, where online training used to just kind of be programming, like here's your PDF,
Yeah.
you know, I'll check in with you in a month.
Hmm.
So we actually see that kind of service change, I think, over the years of the introduction as technology has kind of allowed us to advance it to where you can do weekly check-ins. You could do little Loom videos back to your client. So it's almost like being there in person, just a little bit more asynchronous, but
Hmm.
you can still give a little bit more of that face-to-face feedback or vocal feedback or whatever it is, versus or just typing it out. I mean, just kind of having that very detailed of like, I'm going to comment on this workout, that I'm talking about this exercise.
Hmm.
So I think with that, like I don't do a ton online, and partially because I've kind of always been an in-person coach, and I
Hmm.
really like to have my hands like working in person with people because
Yep.
I find that human connection is just that much more natural. We can get things accomplished a little bit faster in terms
Oh,
of like,
without question. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
technique dialing in, weights dialing in, all that I think is just a little bit quicker that way. I mean, it's real time, right? So
Yeah.
when we look at that, I think that really is the backbone or cornerstone of being a good coach, is knowing how to work with people in person, because you get that immediate feedback, not just verbal, but their body language too.
Hmm.
So how you're communicating comes across different.
Yep.
So if you don't necessarily get that immediately and you go right into online coaching and you're just kind of, especially like if you're new coach, my way or the highway kind of thing, where you're just typing things, blah, 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 this, blah, blah, blah. They're either not getting what you're saying, and then you spend a lot of time going back and forth, hopping on calls, trying to
Yep.
clarify things, or you're just not really seeing the person behind the program. So I do think working with people in person is, I would say, essential before you go online. I think
Oh,
it's
I
way,
agree wholeheartedly.
yeah, you're kind of skipping that step if you jump right into online. And you can make it work, but it's probably going to be a lower ticket type thing where you're more so just programming
Hmm.
or spending a lot of time probably disgruntled and pissing some people off in the process.
Yeah. The hardest part for me was learning how to communicate in a way that people understood what I was saying, because I couldn't put my hands on them or I couldn't demonstrate for them. And
Yes.
I found that to be a big hindrance initially, because when I started online coaching, I remember using just email exclusively. And
Hmm.
then it was Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. And then from WhatsApp we got into an app. And when you get into an app, then it's very much like a sequestered business within this platform. And that's great from a client experience standpoint, but you really have to be on point with your communication, because you only get one shot at providing feedback on one video.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't use intra-set communication, right? You can't communicate to them in between reps.
No.
And I think that makes the biggest difference. So, you know, I always talk about, okay, how can you systematize that level of involvement? So can you provide, feedback close enough to the session that they still have the performance fresh in their mind? And then can you set the expectation for the following session close enough to that session that it's fresh in their mind and they're able to implement it? It's tough. It's very, very
Yeah.
challenging. Um, but I think if you miss out on working hands-on with people, number one, your communication is going to be lacking. And the thing that you're going to be missing the most is your eye.
Yeah.
The ability to discern movement patterns very quickly, where the breakdowns are and how to fix them, is going to be really challenging, because you might only have one angle of the execution. You start to figure it out. It's like, okay, I have this front view of a squat. How can I tell that they're rounding their back in the bottom? Oh, their belt disappears.
Yeah.
Right? So like you kind of find these little ways to figure it out. But the only reason I know that is because, for 7 years, whether I was a personal trainer or working in the collegiate sector, we're talking like 3,000 athletes 3 times a week. It's a lot of squat, benches, and deadlifts. A lot of dumbbell work, split squats, overhead presses, pull-ups. You get a lot of reps and your eye gets really sharp. And so when you just jump into online, your eye is gonna suck.
Hmm.
One thing that I have kind of clued in on with you and Tasha is this really refined and deep understanding of different types of cueing and different types of feedback, whether you're using like internal, external cueing, verbal feedback, kinesthetic feedback. Talk to me a little bit about how that framework has come about, because I find it really, really interesting.
Yeah. So I would say, it really stems, I think, mostly from our in-person coaching.
Right.
So when you're talking with a client, trying to cue them into a certain position, you get people that have different learning styles. So if they're kinesthetic, if they're auditory, if they're visual.
Mhm.
So you try to kind of tap on each of those. And then even within that, I mean, like you said, the intrinsic versus external. So sometimes an intrinsic cue just works better,
Yep.
with what you're trying to achieve. So it's a little bit of practice and I guess guess and check, see if it
Hmm.
sticks. And then you start to just kind of adapt and learn like, okay, this tends to work most for this type of issue or for this type of client. And
Hmm.
then you have others to where it's like very kinesthetic. So hard to do when you're online, but you can think
Very.
about, yeah, right. You can think about maybe some exercises that might provide that cue for you. And that might be something like an RNT where you're applying a band that feeds the dysfunction so they feel that it's terrible when it occurs and their brain basically autocorrects for it. So that one's a little bit harder to tease out in the online, but it's
Hmm.
usually like it'll work for most people regardless as long as they understand the application and don't overdo the band tension and make it a whole different other exercise, which does happen.
Hmm.
But that's a huge one, I think, just for the learning experience. And then thinking about, okay, this cue did not work for this person. I'm going to lean a little bit more into maybe more external here. So just get them to think about it a different way so that they could either apply force faster or get a little bit tighter or just improve their positioning. So I think, yeah, for kinesthetic, it's usually going to be, if you're online, an exercise that can give you that feedback, whether it's, putting some kind of limitation on there, like maybe getting, hey, you have a hard time sitting back into your squat. Maybe you don't quite get the sit back cue or reach your hips back. So let's just put a box there.
Yeah.
So you can sit down, right? You do that a couple times a day at least. So something where it's like, okay, I can coach them by maybe starting them with a box squat for a little bit.
Hmm.
Cool. We start to build that pattern, that stopping power or like that stopping position. Now we're going to remove the box. And now you're going to basically learn to pause in that same spot. So, like an invisible box squat. So now we're trying to just think about building a runway of either exercises and or cueing that will really set that foundation for then to develop that skill and that strength and that power, that speed, whatever you're training to then flourish.
And this is something that you can't learn from a course. Like there's to this day, shameless plug, to this day, we haven't put it out yet, but there hasn't been a course that has actually taught you how to do that. Like that each one of these tools has a specific use case, but how to progress not only the exercise, the loading, the tempo, the constraint, but how to put that within a progressive system that gets your client from point A to point B. And that there's two elements of creativity here that I think are really important. So when you're in an online space, you have to get really, really creative over how you communicate, as you mentioned, how you program so that the communication can actually take hold. But in the in-person space, you're often constrained by, hey, I showed up to this session underslept or whatever. And you have to get creative over how you adapt the stimulus for that specific day. You don't really have that freedom in the online space. You have to,
Mhm.
as you said, set it, get the output. It's more of a reactive approach
Mhm.
versus the in-person is very proactive. I think you can't have one. I personally believe you can't have one without the other. And actually, people know that I really only coach online, but until we moved to Charlotte, I actually still had one in-person client twice a week, every week, because for me, that was really important to keep my sword sharp. Like I wanted to keep my communication on point and keep my coach's eye. And that person ended up being a very close friend of mine, but like that was a really important time for me. So I would encourage online coaches to seek opportunities to be in person with people because it's only going to stand to make you better.
I'm curious, what kind of a time frame would you recommend a coach work with somebody in person before moving online?
Part of me just wants to throw out a number and just say 10,000 hours. Like, cause
That's fair.
it's that number. It's like, oh, in order to be an expert, you have to put 10,000 hours in. Um, I would say that you should have at least a couple years under your belt, in my opinion.
Mhm.
At least 2, 3 years under your belt, working with a number of different populations. Because here's the other benefit of the in-person work is in a lot of instances, you're working in a corporate environment. So you're not really going to have a choice as to who you coach. So
Yeah.
the breadth of experience you get with different populations will only help you refine who you actually want to work with when you do go online. but you'll also have such a robust toolbox of adapting your approach to very different people.
For
And
sure.
I mean, you know as well as I do, not every client you acquire in an online space is going to be that quote unquote ideal client.
Hmm.
Like I would say my ideal client is someone who is, probably 30 to 50 years old, loves to train hard, is like a high achiever executive, wants to frame their mindset, blah, 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 blah. It used to be a power lifter, and I still coach a lot of power lifters. I still coach first responders. I coach, military operators, and each one of those people has different needs, both physically and cognitively.
Hmm.
But because I have such a broad experience level, well, guess what? I can still serve them to a very high level.
Hmm.
You're going to miss out on that if you don't have that experience.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I'd probably go maybe a little bit higher and say at least 5 years, just so you
I,
have
but
that
I
much.
couldn't find anything wrong with that. Like I don't have a rebuttal to you because I think the more time that you spend, the better you're going to be.
Hmm. No, I agree.
But that is, maybe speak to this because you're someone who's admitted you're like, I don't like doing a lot of online stuff. I do it because people need it and I know I can help them, but I much prefer being in the in-person space. It's really appealing to a young coach when you tell them, hey, fresh out of college, you can be making 10, 20 grand a month working 15, 20 hours a week online. It's going to be a tough sell to say, hey, you need to go grind in a corporate gym for 5 years before you can do that.
I agree. It will.
How do you reconcile that?
That's a really good question. To be honest, I just think you need that base. So I would almost challenge him of like, well, show me what you got. Like, give
Yeah.
me an online program. Like, what would you give me? How would you assess me? Just asking those questions. Like, how are you going to learn this?
Hmm.
So if we're working with somebody and they want to go online, like, talk me through those systems that you have in place or that you have in mind, because they probably don't have a system in place yet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that comes from reps, right? I mean, you have to have those reps of like, hey, assessing somebody in person is much different than online. So how do
Hmm.
I adapt what I do in person to what I do online? Like, how is my intake process going to be? So yeah, I think you really got to hammer that out, which ultimately I'd recommend getting somebody like yourself or like a mentor who's been able to do it really well and has had the experience both in person and online.
Yeah. And this isn't meant to be like a plug, although, I mean, people know that, yeah, the sooner you hire a coach or the sooner you hire a mentor, the sooner you're going to be able to expedite your progress. I think that goes without saying.
Hmm.
But in the same breath, you know, I love the fact you said, show me what you got, because my response to that person who's thinking about going online, I would question their motivation. I'm like, is your
Yes.
goal to make a lot of money or is your goal to help a lot of people?
Yeah.
And if your goal is to help a lot of people, you're not going to be pursuing money right away. You're going to be pursuing quality. And
Yeah.
that quality is going to be found in person. And there is nothing to stop you from doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think this day and age, if I was going to advise somebody, I would say, listen, go get a job at a corporate gym or go, try to build a book of business at a private gym while you build your online clientele. Because at least in that instance, you can operate kind of a hybrid style practice where you can coach people a couple times a week in person, but also coach them outside of those sessions. You know, and to me, that when you talk about the best way to build a high revenue business is going to be a hybrid practice because you can get monthly recurring revenue from everyone that you see in person. So if you're charging, I'm just going to throw a number, 100 bucks an hour, just because it's a round number, you're making, you're seeing them twice a week. So 4 times 2 is 800 bucks. Um, then you're charging them, let's say $200 to do a couple workouts and then them to have access to you in a chat function or like a WhatsApp or even in an app. Well, that's $1,000 client.
Yeah.
And if you're seeing 10 people twice a week, that's 20 hours in person. You're making 10 grand a month working 10 hours in person. Like that's pretty good. Or sorry, 20 hours in person. That's a pretty good living.
Yeah. Yeah. especially for a new coach.
especially for a new coach. And so not only that, you're building your business, you are refining your communication strategies, and you're able to, live a pretty cool life. I mean, I think about my expenses when I was like 25. Or I guess, okay, so when I quit in the collegiate space, yeah, I mentioned this. Like when I quit in the collegiate space, I was making the equivalent of $37,000 US a year, working like 70, 80 hours a week. To go from that to making $120,000 a year, working a third of the amount of time, man, I would have been really happy because my personal expenses were super low. I was paying like $800 in rent, and then I had my car payment. So I'm basically walking around with like, you know, $8,500 a month of disposable income. That'd be awesome.
Right? Yeah. No, I'm
So,
glad you went there for the hybrid because, like, that's where I think the sweet spot is for a lot of
oh yeah.
coaches. I mean, like you said, you get to refine the in person, you get to refine your communication, and I don't want to call it practice, but you get exposure. You're dipping your toes in the
Mhm.
online, so you do kind of get practice there, and you have the chance with these hybrid clients to actually communicate in person about it. So you actually get a
Mhm.
little bit more of that vocal feedback of like, okay, that didn't make sense. Awesome. Let me fix that.
Yeah,
So then the following
absolutely.
week, and for some reason, I think people are more open to giving you feedback in person than sometimes they might be on either email or messaging app
I
or
agree.
whatever context it is. So when you're just talking to them, having a conversation, and you're a little bit more inviting for that feedback, like, "Hey, how did that go?" Blah blah blah. I think you get more honest feedback there versus just like, "It was good" or something simple, right?
I didn't actually think that this would go in this direction, but I really like that you brought it there. The willingness to give feedback for me comes from how safe someone feels within a relationship.
Hmm.
So when you're in person, it is so much easier to form an intimate relationship with the individual in front of you because you share the same oxygen. I call it the proximity gap. So in the online space, there is a gap of proximity. I have clients in Kuwait. Like, I am not physically in Kuwait. Not only that, there is a massive time difference between myself and Kuwait. So there is a massive gap of proximity. So how do I form a deep relationship with this person where they feel safe to open up to me?
Hmm.
And it might sound like I'm exaggerating, but you have to have safety within a relationship so that feedback can be given back and forth in a manner where they know no judgment is applied.
Hmm.
When you're in person, you learn how to form those relationships. And I think for a lot of coaches who venture in the online space, they miss out on those soft skills.
Hmm. 100%. And it's harder to have that same because you don't have the same level of that communication
Yeah.
unless you're doing like weekly Zoom calls like this. But even that, I mean, over a screen versus in person for, 55 minutes or an hour, whatever your training session length is,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you could just be that much more warm, inviting, and a little more dynamic in how you're communicating.
Yeah. And I mean, there are replacement tools like you could use Loom for your check in so that they can hear your voice and
Mhm.
see your face. And you could use, voice notes for some of your feedback, although that presents its own limitation because they can't reference back to it. So there's always going to be a trade off in the online space for something that you can get really, really good at in person.
Mhm.
The only trade-off to an in-person practice is the fact that you don't have contact with the person outside of the hour that you see them. And that's where I see the gap filled by a hybrid practice.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, Talk to me a little bit about your competition, your training. How has your, in the trenches experience allowed you to progress as a coach?
Yeah, so I guess I didn't really talk too much about my athletic background.
Yeah, you're an
Uh,
athlete, man. Talk to me.
so yeah, I started powerlifting probably back in 2012, somewhere in that ballpark,
Okay.
and that was, I think, a pretty substantial shift in how I approach training. Because before that, it was more like probably similar to you, came up in maybe a little bit more of a bodybuilding era.
Mhm.
So the or training styles that were out there and the information that was out there was more bodybuilding centric.
Mhm.
So I still did like squats, deadlifts, a lot of bench press,
Yeah.
but I did not push them to a high level of performance. So actually getting on the platform, starting to challenge myself, that actually helped me understand that much more of like applying stress to the system, applying
Mhm.
stress to a person, and basically achieving those goals, not only in strength, but also in conditioning and health as well. Because when you look at that, there's other elements that you need to balance within that. So the more stress that you apply in a certain domain, whether it be strength or conditioning, you can't do all of it at the same time efficiently. Or if you do, you need to have it very tightly
Oh
programmed in
yeah,
a way
it's
that is not contraindicated, right? So
dude, it's tough. It's really, and I'm doing it right now, so I can speak to it. Like, this morning I went and I did about 4.5 miles of intervals running, and then just because of my schedule, I eat one meal and then I go train right after that.
yeah.
So like trying to squat heavy after running intervals, my nutrition has to be dialed in. I have to make sure that I slept well the night before. And even then, on a lot of these days, I literally schedule naps into my schedule because
Yeah.
I don't sleep super well at night. So, and that's a whole other can of worms. But so like this morning I did my run. By 8:30, I was at the gym. By 11 o'clock, I was home working. 2:30 rolls around, cool, 30-minute nap, get on with the day. But you know as well as I do, my nutrition's super dialed in as well. So,
Mhm.
in that window between before my run, after my run, during my training, post training, I'm hammering like 250 grams of carbs and a ton of sodium to try and like do the thing. Unless you're that controlled, you can't do it at a high level.
Yeah.
Straight up, you can't do it.
Yeah, for sure. You're taking sacrifices from some end, right? The top
Yeah,
end of one of those elements. So, yeah, I mean, when I was coming up at that time, like, I thought I knew more than what I do now.
for
And
sure.
I was trying to do all the things. Like, I was trying to do sprints, pretty regular plyometrics. I was trying to run. We would run like on the weekends and stuff. And, still dialing in form for like heavy deadlifts. Like, that was one thing too. Like, powerlifting taught me positioning like
Hmm.
way more than I knew before. So, speaking of bracing and positioning and creating tension, like that taught me where and how to do that. So, that application in the meantime, as you're learning, it's you can do it, but the heavier that you go, the more fatigue and recovery demands like you need from a semi poorly exercised or performed deadlift, right? So
Right.
like your back's going to be a little bit tight. Try going to run a 5K with a tight lower back.
I
Like,
can tell you it's not very enjoyable.
yeah, you just don't rotate well. You feel even stiffer. And yeah, so I mean, you have to be dialed in to be able to do all of that on a high level really well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think performance really put that layer of experience in my programming, and
Mhm.
that trickled down into my clients. So based on their goals, like one of my favorite memes in that I used in one of my presentations for the education for new hire training is it's I forget her name, the girl from the Game of Thrones,
Oh,
the
like the
blonde.
Dragon Queen?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's her just kind of giving this look, and it's the 24-year-old trainer telling a mom of three that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. So, I mean, when you think about that, right? When you're that young and it's like, yeah, I just have to train a few clients as I'm building my schedule, hang out a little bit maybe, and like I've got some time. Time is on your side. Not only that, but you probably recover a little bit better. But when you start to think about who you're working with, and they might not be achieving or trying to achieve high performance goals, but they have a high performance lifestyle in terms of their work. So they're taking on a ton of stress, whether it's
Mhm.
from work, whether from family, whatever it is. The older you get, generally, I feel like you just tend to stack on more things that are stressful in life versus, when you're 20, like things are a little easier going for most people, not everybody. But when you apply
Yeah.
that, like our cup is only so big, right? Of how much
Yeah.
stress we can take in our training sessions. So starting to kind of recognize a little bit more of when to pull back and when to push forward on not only myself, but with clients too. So I think performance really gave me that skill.
Well, and I mean, you're about to take on a whole lot of stress now. I'm sure this isn't a season where you're pushing your training.
That's very true. Yeah. I mean, so thinking about performance, when you asked about like competitions, like I know Tasha, I don't know how she does it, but she does compete consistently at a high level.
Very high level.
Yes. And I just, I'm looking at it like, yeah, I'll be happy to maybe get on a platform or maybe do a strongman comp more casually for me right now. I do
Yeah.
love it. I do enjoy it and I do want to do more of it. But yeah, as we're taking on more and more, it's training. I wouldn't say it's an afterthought, but it's definitely not as high of a priority as it was when I was really pursuing powerlifting and trying to get, the biggest total that I could. And that's just simply because of stress. Just everything that we have going on in terms of
Stress
business.
and priorities. I mean,
Yeah.
like you're sitting here telling me that, it's not as much of a priority and blah, 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 but you're not missing training sessions.
No,
I
no.
know you're not missing training. So like it's still a priority. It's
Yeah.
just not a priority to push those high levels of output.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So training looks a little bit different. I might not be training for as long. And I like simply like, hey, I might dedicate 90 minutes versus like in more peak powerlifting times, like I'd probably do 2, 3 hours sometimes for some of the lower body days.
Dude, I remember some of those squat days. If I had to squat in reps, that's a 3 hour workout minimum.
Yeah. two
Minimum.
hours of just a squat.
Your whole Saturday is just trash.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
One of the things that I actually made a post about this today, and I shared it in a trial reel. But it's like I'll never hire a mentor who doesn't still coach clients, and I'll never hire a coach who doesn't train really hard.
Hmm.
That to me is the pinnacle of what mentorship and coaching truly is. Someone who is walking the walk, putting in the reps, still trying to push themselves to the highest capacity that they can within their current constraints, because that is what the other person is hiring you to do.
Hmm.
And the reason I ask about your own training and competing is because you are somebody who walks the walk. You're still you're yeah, you mentor other coaches, but you also coach clients still. You're in the trenches and you coach clients, and those clients know that you're pushing them and doing the things that make you uncomfortable and challenge your limitations because that's what you're asking of them.
Hmm.
I think we all stand to benefit from taking a look in the mirror and saying like, "Hey, am I being a giant fucking hypocrite here?" Like if I'm asking, I remember when I was coaching a lot of athletes, it would pain me to see some of the other strength coaches in the room have to bring in one of the athletes to demo a drill because they couldn't demo it themselves. It's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Like, I might not be the fastest guy in the world, but I can still do an A skip,
Hmm.
And so even after years of powerlifting and I got back into running, I'm like, oh, I can still do A skips. My knees might not get as high and I might be a little bit uncoordinated, but after a week or two, I'm like, nope, we can A skip. We can, you know, we can bound, we can jump, we can do all these things. That needs to, like, if you can't do that, if a client is sending you a message and if you're an online coach and your client's like, hey, can you send me a video of you doing this? And your answer is no, I can't. That's a problem. And I fell victim to that too. When I was competing in powerlifting, like my mobility was trash.
Hmm.
Hey, coach, can you demo a behind the neck snatch grip press? No, no.
I've got different goals.
But that hurt. That honestly bothered me. And
Hmm.
now that I'm, on the other side of it and I kind of seen the error in my ways, I had a client reach out like, hey, you have a behind the neck scrape the rack press in here. I'm having a lot of trouble. Can you send me a video of it? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I hop under the bar. I show him.
Hmm.
Send him a video when I'm in the gym. And I think like that to me is so, so important.
Yeah.
So, um, so tell me at the core right now, what problem are you trying to solve
For whom?
for your people, for the people that you serve? What
For my people.
for your people?
I would say finding fitness in their busy lives. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the people that I work with are very work focused or very family focused or both.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, which I think a lot of personal trainers can maybe relate to this, the training sessions that they see you are pretty much the only workouts that they're getting in.
Oh yeah.
So, and you look at that, the average personal training client is seeing their trainer twice a week. So often it's trying to see if we can figure out different strategies, different ways for them to get more movement or more exercise in their lives. So actually, with that, I wrote a book called The Desk Athlete Blueprint,
I
which,
saw that.
yeah, it's my attempt at trying to hopefully reach the masses with that. A lot of the
Mhm.
desk workers out there spend hours on end sitting at their desk working to basically get off their chair and hit the floor like you don't need any equipment for it, and do a 15-minute workout that focuses on mobility, a little bit of activation like some light strength, and then
Mhm.
a little bit of circuit training to get the blood flow moving. So thinking about kind of opening up the areas that are tight, strengthening the muscles that'll help them stay in more of a postural stance that they should be in. So kind of opening up like the posterior chain or stabilizing the posterior chain, and then getting some blood flow going so they actually get better venous return from sitting on their butts for 4 to 8 hours a day. So my attempt with that is basically to encourage people that are desk bound, if you will, to break up the monotony. And when they can sneak in anywhere from even a 3 minute, I got a 3 minute reset in there, and it's just a simple mobility type thing that you can run through in your chair. Actually, you don't even have to get out of your chair for that one, but something that where you can just find a spot, whether it's in your office, in your hopefully your home office or something there, or if your office has a gym, just really you just need space.
Mhm.
And get on the floor, move around a little bit, open up some areas, and then get your blood flow moving a bit more, get the heart rate elevated, and go back to work.
Yeah.
I will bet that you will find yourself more energetic throughout the rest of your day just because you moved your body, you exercised, you stimulated
I think
more.
people get I think people get stuck in this idea that a workout has to be some massively structured event within their day.
Yes.
Um, one thing that I do, like obviously you and I are at our desks quite a bit throughout the day. One thing that I do is like I'll just stretch my hips at my desk periodically. I'll move my chair out of the way, and like even while I'm typing or while I'm, on a Zoom call, I'll just take a knee, do a little bit of a hip stretch. I'll set a timer for 4 minutes aside, get that in.
Yeah.
And like funny enough, you'll notice I'm like shifting in my chair a lot right now cuz my hip is a bit jacked up because I've been doing a lot of rowing, and I'm like, "Oh, I haven't been doing my desk mobility."
Mm.
And these are things like for you and I, it's intuitive. It's like, "Oh, this is really easy." But for the majority of people, they don't realize how accessible fitness is.
Mhm.
And I think part of what we can do as educators and as coaches is find a specific problem that you feel well equipped to solve and do as much as you can to solve that for your people. So for you, it was writing a book, and you self-published that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you self-published it, you invested the money, you put it on Amazon. And it's like, okay, now what can I do within my coaching practice or within my social media platforms to get the message out more so that I can sell more of these books, not to make money, but to help people.
Mm.
And when you approach business in that manner, and if there's one thing that people take away from this podcast, this is the second podcast I've done today, and both of them have centered on this issue of helping others. So if you have the goal of helping others and you aim to serve in everything that you do, the business will take care of itself. You will make money.
Mhm.
But if you chase the money and you forget about the people, you might get the money in the short term, but it's going to be really hard to keep and it's going to be impossible to grow.
Amen.
Amen. Um, so tell me about the new gym. What's it going to be called? Where is it? Everything. I
Yeah.
want to know it.
So it's in Bellevue, Washington. It's
Okay.
going to be called Ideal Strength and Performance, and it's about just over 3,000 square feet. And we're going to focus
Okay.
mostly on personal training, semi-private, so mostly coaching services in there. And It's got showers, which is going to be great. So yeah, already equipped, and we're super stoked. We're probably looking to bring on maybe a total team of like 8 coaches there. So we'll have some
Okay.
people in the mornings, some people in the afternoons and evenings there, and maybe get a little bit of limited time for open gym with the limited membership, just so we can really keep the quality high, keep the space super clean, and really
Mhm.
keep it monitored, and really just serve the city of Bellevue and everybody in this area. So
One thing we didn't touch on, and I think this is a great segue, is as a young personal trainer, how do you build your books? Like how do you start getting clients? Like what if I'm getting into the industry, I don't know anyone, or maybe I moved to a new city, starting from scratch. What do I do?
love it. This is a really good question. So when we think about today's age and what
Mhm.
is popular right now, we have social media, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of people are on some kind of social media. That for a lot of coaches, I don't think moves the needle much.
I would
Unless you're
agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, your clients aren't coming to you, especially in person, from these random people that are following you from not in your area code. So
Mhm.
unless you have really figured out SEO type stuff or localization, which I don't really think is that possible unless you're running ads. And that's a whole nother thing, which I don't think you necessarily need to get into as a new trainer. I would say you're building your books by probably going to hopefully the best gym in your town or
Mhm.
city, trying to get a job there, and really just working through the reps of getting people in front of you, talking to members, really doing the consultations, and kind of learning how to communicate well in that space and in that role as a coach. And
Mhm.
once you start to, like, you nailed it on the head there, once you really think about serving others and put, like, listening to what the person is saying in front of you, you're going to start to apply like your knowledge as a coach more as a guide rather than I'm telling you what to do. Like, I'm guiding you along the way. I'm going to really position myself in a way that is showing you that, hey, we can do this. Let's meet you where you're at. This is what I would recommend. But you're not necessarily saying, this is my program, sign up here. Like, and
You
that's,
Dude, you just nailed it. You nailed it because I think as young coaches who maybe are at the peak of that Dunning-Kruger, like we said, they approach conversations by listening to respond rather than listening to provide value. Right. So it's
Mhm.
like I'm listening to you, but I already know what I'm gonna say when you're done talking. Right. So I'm
Mhm.
not hearing you.
Yes. So
That is so lacking.
I've got a story on that actually. One
Sure.
of my longest running clients right now. So he came to me after having a consultation like this with a fellow coach of mine that I won't mention for obvious reasons.
He sucks.
So he met with this coach, and at this time, before he had met with this coach, actually, he was about 300 pounds. He'd
Okay.
lost about 70 at this point.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I mean, significant, right? He's still a little bit on the heavier side. He's not that tall of an individual. And he kind of had communicated, like, yeah, I'd like to lose a little bit more, but my real focus is I want to put on some muscle. I want to look like a character on the Gears of War video game. Like, I want to
Fuck
be
yeah.
jacked, right?
Yeah.
It's an awesome goal. Um,
Yeah.
so the coach that met with him initially, I think maybe visually or just auditorily heard that, like, a fat loss. So they really stuck that. Like, that's all they really heard from that point of them expressing their goal of, like, I want to look like X, Y, and Z. I want to look like freaking Marcus Felix on Gears of War, right? So
Mhm.
they latched onto that. And then how they communicated for the rest of that consultation was about fat loss. So this person is leaving this consultation like, man, I feel like shit.
Mhm.
Like, I came to this person, I've already lost 70 pounds. I want to start talking about putting on muscle right now.
Yeah.
So when I had met this individual, like, I heard that in at least the Gears of War comment, and I'm like, great, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's dive in a little bit more. That was, oh man, I don't know how many years ago now, probably around 2014, and I still work with this person
Oh
today.
shit. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've got a lot of long-time clients. So when you get retention like that, I mean, it really comes from trying to approach it from a service standpoint.
Mhm.
Like now, as my certification or like my background, in terms of education, it's like, okay, this person is at a little bit of a higher fat percentage, but I'm seeing the person beyond that. Like they're telling me their goals. I'm going to focus on that. In the meantime, yeah, we're going to try to get healthier. We're going to try to get a better body fat percentage there. But that's not how I'm going to communicate for this individual,
Right.
because that doesn't speak to that person. If anything, it actually made them feel worse
Mhm.
because they had already not done enough, right, on their
Mm.
own. And losing 70 pounds is a freaking
Is hard.
amazing. Yeah, that's an amazing achievement. So, just an example of like actually listening, like not just hearing, but listening to what they're saying and letting them kind of like express themselves and then follow up on those questions. The more you get them talking, or the more that you follow up and dig a little bit deeper on what they're saying and actually get to the core of what they're trying to tell you, the
Mm.
way better off you're going to be at selling them, quote unquote. Because the sales will happen naturally as you've built that rapport and that trust, and they already know that you're an expert. They already know that you know your stuff because you're in this position. So if you're at a high level gym and they're paying premium dollar to come either see you or for membership, they expect you to be an expert. You don't need to tell them how much you know. You don't need to tell them everything that you would do in that moment. You need to listen to them and actually then communicate from a guide's perspective. And
Well,
you'll
and
be,
as corny as it sounds, it's like they only care how much you know when they know how much you care.
yeah.
So if you're leading with value and you're trying to create a rapport with somebody, you're already 10 steps ahead of the game. Then not only being in the gym on the floor talking with people, but being in the gym on the floor training. If they see you training, they're
Hmm.
going to be interested. I cannot tell you how much our business grew just by us moving to a different gym and just people seeing us train. Like you see Liv hammering away at 10 plate leg presses. Yeah, if you're a female who wants to build muscle, you're going to ask her what she does.
Yeah.
You know, at the time I was competing in body, like when we first moved, I was doing a prep. So they see my body changing every week. They see me in the gym hammering away. I had a lot of people notice, hey man, like you got some crazy scars on your knees. Like you're still in here squat, like 12 plate, belt squats. Like what's going on? Like they ask questions, they're genuinely interested. And that allows you to interject and be like, oh, actually I'm a coach and, I did my own rehab and this is what I did. And oh, I've been having some knee pain myself. Like anything you recommend? And dude, we picked up clients left, right, and center just by being in the gym doing our thing.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, that's actually a huge thing for Tosh and I too in that gym. Like we would purposely train in that location because we had a sister location too, but it did
Okay.
not have nearly the same traffic. So as you're
Mhm.
building your books, you want to be where the people are,
Yep.
and just training hard and actually showing that it's a priority in your life and how you actually approach training or even training clients, right? So visually seeing how you are on the floor with clients, you're always pretty much on audition, if you will.
Yep.
So people are noticing your body language. They're noticing how you interact. They're noticing how you coach or don't coach. So
Hmm.
that's a huge thing. Whether you're working there or working out there can be a huge referral source in terms of just your first impression, or at least an impression to potentially picking up clients.
Absolutely. I love it. So I ask people on the podcast two questions. The first one is going to be important. The second one, I already know your answer, but so we'll go with the first one. If there was a billboard on the side of the highway for everyone to read, and you could put anything on that billboard, what would it say?
That's a good question. Ooh. Can we come back to that one? I'm going to
Sure.
think on that one. Okay.
Sure. The second question is, who's someone you'd like to see me interview on the podcast? But the caveat is that you have to help me get them on.
Perfect. Okay. Let's think. Somebody probably knew, huh?
Dude, she's right beside you.
Well, I know. Yeah, definitely we'll get Tasha on here. She is right
Yeah.
beside me still. Yeah, we definitely got to get her on here. So Yeah, that's an easy one. I hear you on that. Tee
All
it
right,
up,
who else?
get
Who
Tasha
else?
on there. Um, have you had Luca on here?
I did have Luca. It was a great interview,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody else here. Let's think. Oh, Aaron Murray would be a great one.
I don't think I'm familiar with him.
4-time world champion strong woman
Oh, wow.
in different weight classes. Yeah.
Oh,
So
100%.
she,
You have
she
to
would
give
be
me that.
fantastic. Yeah. Tasha and I have been coaching her for a bit, and she would be a fantastic guest for you. So
All right.
I'll connect you and get you set up with her, and I think she'd
100%.
be happy to do it. So
All right. Let's get back to the real question. What's your fucking billboard message, asshole?
what is my billboard message? Let's see, man. I guess something is better than nothing. When it comes to fitness, when it comes to movement, like do something, just start. When you actually start taking the steps, that's what creates the momentum to go further. So, I mean, I know that's a way too much words to put on a billboard, but to get people thinking in terms of like something is okay. Tasha just gave me a note here and I love it. Can't go wrong with strong. So when we think about that, I mean, both of those really, something is better than nothing. Like get out there, start making efforts, even if it's just something as simple as, hey, I want to run more, or I want to start doing cardio. I'm going to put my running shoes by the door and
Mhm.
try to remove any kind of obstacles in the morning or with the time that I intend to do it. So that's just simple and easy to do it. I
Dude.
mean, as a fitness professional, right? So this is probably not going to sound too significant, but I try to get my ass up and do cardio every morning. So I got to get up in the morning and turn the heater on in the garage because currently we're coaching people out of our garage gym. So when I do that, I pull the bike out. Like it's
Mhm.
something easy, simple, and I put on my cardio shoes, my training shoes, basically that I'll do cardio in. So I try to set that up so I don't. It's that much harder for me to talk myself out of it because I've already got my shoes on, the bike's already set up, and I would very easily, I could come down here to my office and start looking at emails or start looking at programs or whatever it is, start doing work before my clients come.
Mhm.
But just doing those little things where it's like, you know what, I'm gonna just have my shoes out. I'm gonna basically get them on and be ready to do my cardio and then just make it easy. So simple steps that
Dude.
you can do to make it easy.
I do the same. So I do a similar thing. So one thing that I know is like I love gadgets. So, for the running stuff, like I still have a lot of friction to go out for that run because I know it's going to be hard.
Mhm.
And so as soon as it got cold outside, I friggin' hate when my hands are cold. It's like my biggest pet peeve is when my hands are cold. So I started running on the treadmill in the garage, and I was like, man, this treadmill sucks. So I went online and I was like, I'm gonna buy a really nice treadmill. And so I
Nice.
bought a really fancy treadmill. It's on the way. And I'm like, if I have a really fancy new treadmill that I just spent X amount on, I'm gonna use it. So
Oh yeah.
I have no excuse but to use it. So that's gonna be a motivator. I have a buddy of mine who hates vacuuming. So he bought a Dyson.
Yes.
And he's like, this gadget is so cool. Now I love vacuuming. Like, so I will often advise people like that. Like, listen, if you're going to start running, buy a really, really expensive pair of running shoes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then you feel guilty not running in these super fancy shoes.
Yeah, you're investing in it, right? You're
You're
investing in that
investing in it.
habit
You're
and
bought in.
developing it for sure.
Dude, I really appreciated this conversation. Really enjoying putting this course together with you. I know it's taken, a year, but I think people are going to be really happy with it. They're going to get a ton of value. And if people want to find you and follow along, get updates on the gym, where can they find you?
So right now, my main website is idealstrength.com. We'll get a second website up for the gym. Don't quite have that address just yet. So I will link those two. My social media is at Ideal Strength, and I have started a Substack as well too, which I
Oh,
do send out a
nice.
newsletter for coaches. Yeah, so I just kind of transitioned it onto Substack too. So that's just idealstrength.substack.com. or you can pick up a lot of resources that both Tosh and I post on social media with a little bit deeper write-ups in terms of coaching. So that's primarily for coaches, fitness professionals, really just looking to learn. We just try to organize basically a lot of our thoughts into different graphics like tables and everything. So those resources, great way to find us that way and learn from us. Mostly our social medias tend to be educational based.
Yeah.
So for coaches, as well as desk athletes as well. So kind of throwing that in there too. If you're interested in that book as well, you could search that for Amazon or on Amazon. It's in print and ebook as well. And I also have a link to it on my bio page too. So,
Dude, I love it. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
We finally
my
made it
pleasure.
happen.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We'll catch you on the next one.